On behalf of Stanford's undergraduate program in international relations, I would like to welcome you all to our degree ceremony. My name is Steve Stedman, and I have the privilege of being the faculty director of the program. I'm delighted to be joined on stage today by a number of faculty who teach and advise in our program, and I'd like to introduce and acknowledge them. Jasmina Bojic, Hashem Salam, Britton Heller, Aiko Takeuchi, Rob Rakoff, Erica Gould, and we're delighted to have as our keynote speaker Professor Kathryn Stoner, who I'll be introducing at greater length later. The IR major at Stanford was created more than 50 years ago, and at the time, the introductory class for the major was called How Nations Deal with Each Other. It focused on questions of international cooperation and conflict. Why do wars happen? What can be done about them? When does economic conflict become violence? Our major still studies these questions, but because the world does not stand still, new issues arise constantly. Some of our biggest challenges are now transnational. They're what my former boss at the United Nations, Kofi Annan, used to call problems without passports: transnational organized crime, pandemics, climate change. In 20 years, we've gone from a world where economic interdependence meant progress and growth to a world where economic interdependence means vulnerability, risk, and conflict. It's a complicated world out there. It's a complicated world that these graduates are going to have to navigate. But I hope when you hear about them and what they've accomplished at Stanford, you'll be optimistic that they're up to the challenge. Before we turn to our great lineup of speakers, let me just say a few things about this class. We have 50 majors and 16 minors in the program. IR at Stanford is the only undergraduate major that requires students to spend at least a quarter studying overseas. We also require that all our students be proficient in a second language. We also have, within this group, students who have done honors theses, who have looked at the struggle for healthcare in Cambodia, to challenges to the rule of law in India, to corporate ownership of major newspapers in Australia and their effects on politics. We're proud of them all. We're proud of all of their accomplishments. They have been all around the world to our different campuses and beyond. They speak more than 15 languages amongst them. So let's give the first round of applause of many today to the class of 2026. We're now going to hear from two student members of this distinguished class. Our first speaker is Shayla Fitzsimmons-Call, who hails from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. She specialized in social development and human well-being and comparative international governance. She studied abroad in Peru, learned Spanish and French, minored in theater and performance studies, and is graduating with interdisciplinary honors in democracy development and rule of law. Shayla is grateful to have spent so much of her time at Stanford in conversation with her exceptional classmates, professors, and friends, and to have spent even more of that time basking in the sunshine of Meyer Green. Shayla?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd first like to begin by saying hello to my family, who didn't know I was speaking today, so surprise. And to everyone else, good afternoon, to our wonderful faculty, to the other family and friends present, and of course, to the International Relations class of 2026. It's an honor to be here. It has certainly been a busy few years studying international relations. We all chose, perhaps unknowingly, perhaps with some dark intuition, a very eventful time to be studying this. I won't start listing things. You all were here, studying the world. You know much of what I would say. Still, I remember sitting down in IR 101 for the first time. I think back to the ideas that were supposed to help us make sense of the world. Ideas like realism, liberalism, the balance of power, the democratic peace. While in the beginning, these ideas do help us make sense of the world, we all find, and we all will find, these things don't fit neatly into frameworks. Things that maybe never have. And I think many of us, at some point, have felt that reckoning. We've questioned, we've pushed back, we've hesitated. And as I look at you all, my fellow graduates, the thing that makes me proud to know you, to be one of you, is not how well we learn the frameworks of our field, but how well we fought to explore the study and practice of international relations ourselves. Some of you did this by taking an internship in Madrid, spending a summer learning Russian in the Republic of Georgia, or studying global health in Colombia. Some of us followed these questions to research, assisting professors at Hoover, or writing a year-long honors thesis. Just as real, however, was the thinking that we did on our own time, in our dorm rooms, between classes, wrestling with questions that kept finding their way back to us. For me, this questioning came between junior and senior year at Stanford, when I took some time away. Last year, I interned at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee during the first months of the Trump administration, where I watched USAID close its doors in real time, fielding emails from development organizations around the world, hoping that someone in the building was still listening. I followed my time in Washington with study abroad in Peru. I spent 3 months in the back of taxis, talking to drivers with strong opinions about their president, one of the most unpopular in the world at the time. I saw Peruvian democracy not only from an academic perspective, but also from the vantage of baristas and tour guides. For my host family, the violent guerrilla group tormenting their country was not an esoteric academic conversation. But Peruvians, like people all over the world, don't just end their conversations discussing how the world is. They talk about how it should be. In Washington, I saw people working hard within the possible, navigating what could actually move, what had a chance of surviving the next vote or budget cut. But in Washington and Peru both, I heard people who never stopped asking what the world should be, what they believe a government exists to do, what they believe citizens are owed, what they believe should be done. I learned last year that neither realism nor idealism ever feels complete without the other. Now, how do we know what the world should be? Our professors have their own dreams, and they had their own professors and friends to help get them there. Through their lectures, their stories, their office hours, we have strengthened, revised, or even wholly changed our dreams for the world. But I have refined my dreams about this world most significantly from you all, my classmates. In the basement of Encina Hall, we debated morality in decision-making. We examined what it means to act on the belief that all life is worth something. We peer-reviewed each other's papers on human dignity. We talked about the right to a life that climbs Maslow's hierarchy to the very top, where your thoughts about existence are a choice, not forced upon you by violation or by violence. This is not, however, the world we live in right now, but it is a world many of us dream of. And how do we get there? In IR, however, we've come to discover that we rarely know the answer for sure. But we've learned from our professors and from each other that it's important to keep asking that question. We graduates come from different countries, different families, speaking different languages, with different relationships to the word international itself. For some of us, the conflicts we studied were not case studies. The oppression was not foreign or far away. The news articles were not abstract. For some of us, they were phone calls home to some of you all, stories passed down to loved ones, or places that we cherish. And yet, we have something in common. This program at this university, in this space where we had the freedom and the safety to ask questions. And that is a rare thing. Not everyone gets that. We did. We had a chance to dream of a better world. And may we continue to do so. Not in academic settings, not just in academic settings, but in taxi rides, in dinner conversations, and in the rooms where we'll one day have the power to act. Keep asking people how they want the world to look, and they'll keep telling you. Making an impact within the constraints that exist is vital, but we can dream of a world where the constraints are different. As students, as global citizens, and as lifelong learners, nothing lends us greater strength than keeping our dreams alive. Class of 2026, it's been an inexplicable honor to dream alongside of you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Shayla. Our second student speaker today is Dani Gonzalez Gaubeka, all the way from Palo Alto, California. She specialized in East and South Asia and comparative international governance, studied abroad in Florence. East and South Asia and Florence. Yeah, I always think of those together. She learned Italian and Korean. She minored in European studies and is graduating with interdisciplinary honors in democracy development and the rule of law, and with distinction. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, the Booth Prize for Outstanding First-Year Writing, and was inducted into the Italian Honor Society. She has spent her time at Stanford investigating how history shapes current events, and she believes that the way countries craft the stories of their past informs how they construct their future, and she will continue her research on memory politics as a graduate student. Dani?
Thank you, Professor Stedman, and good afternoon, everyone. Caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. These words may be familiar to fellow Spanish speakers. It's a line from a poem by Antonio Machado. He reminds us, the traveler, that there is no set path. We forge our path as we go. IR students are equal parts travelers and scholars. As travelers, we thrive outside of our comfort zone. Our curiosity can't be contained within the sandstone and brick walls of Stanford. There are no limits, especially geographic, to where we'll go in our search of new experiences. We have a knack for finding familiarity in the unknown. Even when we wander off the beaten path, we are never lost. As scholars, we don't accept superficial solutions. We investigate with rigor and depth. We refuse to limit ourselves to a single discipline or methodology in our pursuit of knowledge. Our courses and concentrations span continents. Our study abroad experiences immersed us in diverse cultures. Our cohort is a microcosm of an increasingly interconnected world. I arrived at Stanford with a passion for history and a curiosity for global politics. My interests would only multiply as I learned about global populism, East Asian history, early modern European political theory, and even how to start my own country. When I joined the IR program, I saw that exploring these academic interests did not mean deviating from my set path. Each was a stepping stone towards deepening lifelong passions. Even when I took an especially long detour to study Florentine literature and the Islamic Mediterranean during my quarter abroad, I returned to campus eager to dive back into my IR courses. No two IR majors follow the same path. We advocate for equitable healthcare in Southeast Asia. We investigate democratic backsliding in Europe. We champion climate justice in the Caribbean. We are multicultural and multilingual. Our diversity is the soul of this program. We are united by the wisdom we've gained from one another. I interned in Brussels last summer, and while serving as a BOSP student ambassador this year, I learned from my IR peers about the connective power of cultural exchange. From my fellow IR majors in the CDDRL honors cohort, I learned about the value of building in community. I also learned that you can find IR majors in the most unexpected places. I met one of my dear friends during sophomore college in Monterey Bay, where we bonded over a shared love of global affairs and a propensity for seasickness. Being a member of the IR cohort is endlessly enriching and inspiring. I'll share the next line of Machado's poem. Al volver la vista atrás, se ve la senda que nunca se ha de volver a pisar. As we look back, we see the path that we shall not walk again. Today, we turn the page on 4 years of profound learning and growth. We leave Stanford's campus as alumni, our undergraduate years now behind us. Reflecting on our time here is bittersweet. We revel in taking the next steps of our path, yet grieve the experiences we will only have here. We will always carry with us the knowledge and experiences we gained as Stanford students. We will also carry forth the lessons imparted to us by our professors and mentors. Machado's words can guide us as we reflect on the impact we wish to make in the world. We depart from Stanford at a time for great uncertainty in the global community. The international order is fundamentally changing. The foundations underpinning 80 years of stability are eroding. We've studied global governance, economics, cultures in this context. We've watched paragons of democracy become case studies unimaginable when we first stepped foot on Stanford's campus. In the face of unprecedented challenges, our cohort's perspectives are needed more than ever. As we go forth, I hope that each of us, as travelers and scholars, can chart a clear path for those who follow. Thank you, and congratulations to the International Relations class of 2026.
Thank you, Dani. I now have the honor and pleasure of introducing today's faculty speaker. Dr. Kathryn Stoner is the Mosbacher Director of the Center on Democracy, Development, and Rule of Law, and the Satra Family Senior Fellow at the Freeman Spogli Institute of International Studies. From 2017 to 2021, she served as FSI's Deputy Director. She is a professor of political science by courtesy and teaches in the Department of Political Science, the program on international relations, and the Ford Dorsey Masters in International Policy. She is also a senior fellow by courtesy at the Hoover Institution. Professor Stoner is a popular teacher amongst our IR students who have taken her courses on Russian politics and democracy development and the rule of law. Professor Stoner is one of the foremost experts in the world on contemporary Russia, and the reward for all of her hard work and research is that she is officially now persona non grata in Putin's Russia and is on their infamous political enemy list, which she rightly wears as a badge of honor. Her most recent book is Russia Resurrected, Its Power and Purpose in a New Global Order, which reviewers described as an authoritative and compelling examination of Russia's global influence. She's also a researcher of democracy and has published books and articles on democratic transitions and autocracy and democracy in the post-communist world. Before coming to Stanford in 2004, Professor Stoner was on the faculty at Princeton for 9 years, where she received the Glendenning Prize awarded to outstanding junior faculty. She received a BA and MA in political science from the University of Toronto and a PhD in government from Harvard. In 2016, she was awarded an honorary doctorate from Ilyich State University in Tbilisi, the Republic of Georgia. Please join me in welcoming Professor Kathryn Stoner.
Wow, thank you, Steve. So the important thing is that we cheered louder than history behind us, and that's economics getting rowdy in back there. Well, Professor Stedman, distinguished colleagues, proud families and friends, and most importantly, the graduating class of the 2026 Stanford University International Relations Program. And I fear somewhere my husband is in the crowd too. Good afternoon, everyone. I think, therefore I are. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, And I'm really happy to finally receive one of these. 22 years, okay? That's perseverance. Here's a true confession. I've long coveted the International Relations Program swag because of this motto: I think, therefore I are. Graduates, you not only have these really cool t-shirts, 100% cotton, buttons, even perhaps mugs, it's just a rumor, but even more valuable, you have spent the last 4 years living the motto: I think, therefore I are. It's a clever phrase, it's a little cheeky, it's a nod to René Descartes, the French mathematician, philosopher. But I want to suggest to you today that in the motto is also a quiet act of defiance. And understanding why that is matters enormously as you leave the cocoon here on the farm. René Descartes, writing in the first half of the 17th century, actually wrote this: dubito ergo cogito ergo sum. I'm told I speak Latin with a Russian accent, so just go with it. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. He was writing at a moment of profound epistemological crisis in Europe. The old certainties of his world were dissolving as the age of enlightenment dawned. The Catholic Church's iron grip authority on society and the state was being challenged. The scientific revolution was upending how human beings understood their purpose and place in the world. The nature of work was changing, as was the kind of work that was valued and well compensated. And at such a time of dramatic change, Descartes, probably dressed much in the way that I am today, was grasping for something true and a way to prove it. And so he came up with this link between thinking and human existence. He landed on this, something solid to stand on when almost everything else was shifting beneath his feet. Sound familiar? Graduates, you know that you are graduating into a world that is, by almost any measure, in the middle of one of the most disorienting periods in modern history. The liberal international order, that set of institutions, norms, and habits of cooperation that your professors, myself among them, have spent careers studying, is under genuine stress. Great powers are competing in ways that feel less like rivalry and more like tectonic collision. Democracy, which not long ago seemed to many observers to be on an inexorable upward march toward the end of history, to coin a phrase, is retreating in country after country, sometimes violently, sometimes quietly, sometimes by the ballot box itself. Now, the institutions designed to manage these tensions, the ones you have read about, written papers about, argued about in seminars, and apparently in what, Shayla, we call the garden level of Encina Hall, not the basement, okay? These institutions are straining. Some are failing, and some have already failed. Now, I don't tell you this to frighten you. I tell you this, graduates, because you already know it. You think, therefore I are. Now, let me tell you what I've observed in the students who pass through the International Relations program. You come in with idealism, which is good. Idealism isn't naivety. It's a moral commitment to change, dressed in practical clothing. But over the course of your time here, something much more interesting happens, at least interesting to me. Your idealism gets stress tested, and it most certainly has over these last 4 years in particular. It runs up against economics, history, against the complexity of ideologies, incentives, and institutions, against the stubborn fact that human beings and the nations they build do not behave the way we wish or hope that they would. Now, some of the students who come through our program come out on the other side a little cynical, and I understand why. Cynicism is a kind of armor. When you know how badly things can go, when you've read Thucydides or studied genocide in Rwanda or exhaustively reviewed the causes of the collapse of the Versailles Treaty, all in the same quarter, a certain bitter detachment can feel like wisdom. But I want to argue passionately today that cynicism is a betrayal of what you have learned. Because here's what rigorous thinking about international relations actually teaches you: that the world is not immutable, that the rules and institutions governing global affairs were made by human beings, often imperfect human beings, in specific historical moments, and that those rules can be remade, remodeled, or rebuilt. Agency exists, choices matter. The difference between a world that simply muddles through and a world that fractures is often a handful of people in the right rooms at the right moments who stopped doubting they could change the world as they were experiencing it, and who started thinking about the world as it could be. That is not optimism or naivety. That is the history of international relations. I think, therefore, I are. Now, I want to say something about the nature of this particular historical moment, which our student speakers have already alluded to, but I think it asks something specific of your generation, graduates. We're not living through a crisis not of just institutions, but also of epistemology, much as in the time of René Descartes in the 17th century. Here in the 21st century, the very idea that facts are shared, that there is a reality about which reasonable people can disagree, but which nonetheless exists, is under assault in ways that make the work of peaceful international relations and sometimes domestic politics in many countries uniquely difficult. How do you negotiate with a counterpart who rejects the premise of a shared evidentiary world? How do you build multilateral cooperation when domestic politics in country after country is rewarding those who treat international engagement as weakness? How do you sustain democratic alliances when democracy itself is under threat globally? These are not rhetorical questions. They're the actual problems sitting in your generational inbox. What I want you to hold on to, what your education here has prepared you to do, is to embrace, but also think critically and responsibly about the uncertainties that you will continuously confront as you leave Stanford. Resist the temptation to collapse complexity into quick fixes. Ask the next question when everyone else has stopped talking. Be the person in the room who says, wait, who benefits from us believing that? Who suffers? What are we not seeing? Why are we doing this? What can I do or do better? That is the cogito of our motto. I think, therefore I are. After today, some of you are heading into government, some into NGOs or international organizations, journalism, business, law, or back to academia. A few of you are doing things I genuinely cannot predict because you don't know either. And although that's definitely unsettling for you and for your families at the moment, you will discover that uncertainty is an unyielding part of the human condition. We all have to learn to live with it. Wherever you go, you will face moments where the world asks you to stop thinking about how to tackle or live with the uncertainties that you'll have to confront, to go along, just to get along, to decide that one more small compromise or quick fix is worth the access, the promotion, the seat at the table, the money. And to be fair, sometimes compromise is worth it. After all, you cannot be effective if you are never pragmatic. That's absolutely true. But there is a line. As you know from your studies of international politics, the people who lose track of their own moral lines in the sand rarely do so all at once. It happens incrementally, quietly, in moments that feel individually entirely reasonable. Your job, and I mean this as a genuine professional obligation, is to keep track of the line, to know where yours is, to have thought about it before you find yourself in a room having to make a complex decision in the context of uncertainty where sticking to what you believe, to your values, really matters. For if nothing else, the education you have received here is in part an education of the long arc of consequences, in the way that small decisions compound over time into large histories, in the difference between short-term tactics and long-term strategy, between expedience and true wisdom. Thinking is being. Cogito ergo sum. So let me close. I feel Professor Stedman behind me, timing me. Let me close with something personal. I have been researching and teaching in this field for almost 40 years. I was a child prodigy, in case you're trying to guess my age. I have watched the world change, sometimes in ways that felt like progress, sometimes in ways that felt like regression. And as a specialist in Russian, when I started, it was Soviet politics, almost always in ways that surprised me. The students I remember most in my now 22 years at Stanford, as Steve mentioned, I languished on the East Coast for more than a decade before coming to the Best Coast. The students I remember are not the ones who had the most confident answers. They are the ones who asked the hard, sometimes intractable, frustrating questions. The ones who came, and you know who you are, the ones who came to office hours or wrote a thesis or paper not to get validation from me that they are smart, but to genuinely wrestle with something they couldn't resolve, something that was hard to understand or accept, but that they nonetheless found fascinating. Today, the world genuinely, urgently needs people who can sit with complexity, uncertainty, and difficulty, and yet who bravely attack big problems with intensity, passion, and perseverance. People who understand that it is okay to be uncomfortable sometimes, to admit that they don't know the answer right away, and to doubt other people and sometimes themselves, but who also think deeply. Dubito ergo cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. And AI is not. So here's what I want to leave you with. Stay engaged, of course, not just with the incredible careers that I know you all have, but with the substance of what you have learned here in international relations. Keep reading, keep arguing, garden level. Keep thinking critically and creatively. Change your mind when the evidence demands it. Build networks, not just for professional advancement, but because the collective intelligence of people who think carefully about the world is one of the most powerful resources we have to improve the state of contemporary global affairs. Stay connected to each other, and as an officer of Stanford University, I'm obligated to mention stay connected to us. But stay connected to a community of people who believe that rigorous thought about international relations is not an academic exercise, but actually a moral imperative. And remember why you chose to study international relations in the first place. Not for ease, not for the certainty that a mathematical formula might give you when correctly applied, but because you understood, even when you were just starting out, that the questions you had about the world were complex, difficult, but actually important. So as you leave, never forget our motto. Wear your T-shirts proudly, as I will. I think, therefore I are. Go doubt, go think, go change the world. Congratulations, class of 2026.
Thank you so much, Professor Stoner. We're now going to begin the conferral of degrees. Graduates, you've already been told, but you should walk towards us, towards the podium here, when your bio is being read. There'll be 2 photos. First, when I give you your degree holder, and then you'll stand between Professor Stoner and me for a second photo. The student bios today will be read by 2 of our core lecturers. Erica Gould is a lecturer in international relations who directs the IR honors program and teaches IR capstone practicum courses. And Robert Rakoff is a lecturer in international relations who teaches several core classes on history and American foreign policy.
Dana Adibifar is from Denver, Colorado. She specialized in economic development, world economy, and international security, studied abroad in Oxford, learned Persian, minored in Iranian studies, and received the Alumni Association Community Impact Award. She was a Seniors for the Stanford Fund board member, Stanford U.S.-Russia Forum researcher, and Carnegie Endowment for International Peace intern. Most memorable were the little things that made Stanford feel like home, from office hour conversations to spontaneous adventures with friends. Dana plans to pursue a career at the intersections of security, political economy, and international affairs. Vihan Agarwal is from New Delhi, India. He specialized in international security and international history and culture, studied Hindi, and minored in classics. He is the founder of One Step Green and a speaker for the Stanford Pollution and Health community. Most memorable were the friendships, mentors, and new perspectives he gained at Stanford. Vihan plans to scale his waste management nonprofit startup in India over the summer and then complete a co-term in sustainability science and practice. Yelena On is from McLean, Virginia. She specialized in international history and culture and international security, studied abroad in Oxford and Namibia, and learned Korean. She was a residential assistant for Donner and 550, a Stanford campus tour guide, and a member of Stanford Flying Treehouse. Most memorable was serving as a Frosh RA and gaining 86 little siblings while helping to build community in the dorms that were her first home here at Stanford. Yelena plans to work as a team counselor at Sierra Camp before moving to New York in the fall. Aliana Arzola is from Guaynabo, Puerto Rico. She specialized in social development and human well-being and economic development world economy, studied abroad in Berlin, learned Spanish, French, and German, minored in economics and German studies, was inducted into the German Honor Society, and graduated with IR honors. She was financial officer for the Society for International Affairs at Stanford, lead ambassador for the Bing Overseas Studies program, and interned at the German Council on Foreign Relations. Most memorable was being engaged with the BOSP program, where she improved her German, worked at a think tank, and in the refugee support sector for 2 summers, and helped other students study. Aliana will pursue a master's in international economics policy at Sciences Po in Paris, France. Jessica Budney is from Monterey, California. She specialized in international security and Europe and Russia, studied in Paris and Stanford and Washington, and learned French and German. She was a McDonald's Student Fellow with the Wargaming and Crisis Simulation Initiative at Hoover, and interned with the U.S. Department of Defense. Most memorable was being a member of Italic, Stanford's living and learning artistic community, and a jazz vocalist and multi-instrumentalist. It gave her the special opportunity to create art alongside incredibly talented and passionate students, grow in a tight-knit creative community, and build lifelong friendships. Jessica will complete a co-term in public policy and plans to pursue a career in technology policy with a focus on AI regulation and expanding equitable access to emerging technologies. Lila Batchelor is from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She specialized in international security and international history and culture, learned Spanish and studied Portuguese on a critical language scholarship, and studied away in Rio de Janeiro and Stanford and Washington. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and graduated with interdisciplinary honors in democracy development and the rule of law, and with distinction. She was a member of the Stanford Club running team, a freshman residential assistant in Robinson, and an intern for Senator Jeff Merkley, and at National Security Action. Most memorable were the friendships formed in her freshman dorm that have carried her through the last 4 years and shown her what makes Stanford's residential community so special. Lila plans to work as a research assistant for Professor Amy Ziegert at the Hoover Technology Policy Accelerator. Dash Beavers is from Harrington Park, New Jersey. He specialized in environment, energy, and natural resources and economic development world economy, studied abroad in Santiago, and learned and minored in Spanish. He was a residential assistant and intern for the Health and Environmental Research Institute in Kenya. Most memorable was studying in Chile, where he discovered his passion for exploring new cultures and his desire to live abroad after graduation. Dash plans to complete a co-term in civil and environmental engineering and then work abroad in ocean energy exploration. Kate Burry is from Los Angeles, California. She specialized in economic development, world economy, and international history and culture, studied abroad in Paris, learned French, minored in economics, and is graduating with IR honors, and won the Stanford Oral Communication Program Award for Excellence in Honors Thesis Presentation. She was president of Stanford Women in Finance, a designer for the Fashion X runway show, and a member of Kappa Kappa Gamma. Most memorable was writing an honors thesis across the history and IR fields. Kate plans to work in finance at Goldman Sachs in New York City. Suha Choi is from Seoul, South Korea. She specialized in international history and culture and international security, studied in Florence and Accra, double majored in classics, received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and graduated with interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. She was a museum guide at the Cantor Arts Center, a research assistant at Shorenstein Asian Pacific Research Center, and a Stanford and Government Summer Fellow. Most memorable were the unplanned everyday moments spent with friends, dinners at Treehouse, sunbathing by the pool, and sunset walks around Lake Log. Suha plans to complete a co-term in public policy and then pursue a career in law or foreign policy research. Rani Chor is from Hacienda Heights, California. She specialized in Africa and East and South Asia, learned Mandarin, Spanish, and Khmer, studied abroad in Cape Town, Beijing, and Oxford, minored in biology and human rights, and graduated with IR honors. She was awarded the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and is graduating with distinction. She was a Heidi Cho language scholar for Mandarin and an editor at the Stanford Daily, a Stanford College ambassador for the United Nations Foundation, and an IR peer advisor. Most memorable was learning to play alto saxophone and playing it on the football field dressed as Spider-Man at the big game, where Stanford finally beat Berkeley. Rani will be learning Arabic and reporting on the Middle East as a presidential associate at the American University in Cairo. Celeste Chung is from Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia. She specialized in East and South Asia and international security, learned Chinese and French, and is graduating with IR honors and distinction. She was a Dalai Lama Fellow, interned at NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in Estonia, and was an editor at the Stanford Political Review. Celeste plans to attend law school and specialize in international law. Jonah Coy is from Belize. He specialized in economic development, world economy, international security, studied abroad in Florence, and learned Spanish. Most memorable was studying abroad, where he was able to immerse himself in a completely different culture and way of life. It pushed him out of his comfort zone and gave him new perspective. Jonah plans to attend law school and become a corporate lawyer. Andrea de la Cruz is from Compton, California. She specialized in economic development, world economy, and environment, energy, and natural resources, studied abroad in Florence, learned Spanish and Italian, minored in political science, and graduated with interdisciplinary honors in feminist, gender, and sexuality studies. She was a resident assistant at West Lagunita, interned for Women's Community Center, and was a member of the Stanford Women in Politics Community Development Team. Most memorable was Family Weekend, when her family came out from LA to get a glimpse of her student life and explore the Bay Area. Andrea plans to attend graduate school. Claire Dean is from Piedmont, California. She specialized in social development and human well-being and comparative international governance, studied Mandarin and Spanish, and is co-terming in biology. She was a member of the Stanford Women's Gymnastics team. Claire plans to attend medical school. Kendall Dowd is from Austin, Texas. She specialized in international security and economic development, world economy, studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish, and minored in Latin American studies. She was a member of the Stanford field hockey team, a member of Team Impact, and participated in Summer Research College. Most memorable was working with CSAC faculty through the Summer Research College and doing in-depth research on subjects she'd only previously studied theoretically. Kendall plans to pursue a master's in national security at the University of Texas LBJ School of Public Affairs. Yara Elian is from Walnut Creek, California. She specialized in international security and economic development, world economy, studied abroad in Geneva, learned Russian and Spanish, and received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was captain of the Stanford Artistic Swimming Team, co-president of the Stanford Class of 26, recruitment director for Kappa Alpha Theta, and a member of Stanford in Government Fellowships and Stipend Committee. As a varsity student athlete, she was Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Freshman of the Year and Swimmer of the Year, a 3-time All-American and Stanford Athletics Block Board S Outstanding Sophomore. Most memorable was winning the 2024-25 National Championship with the Stanford Artistic Swimming Team. Yara plans to work as an analyst at BlackRock. Lalo Espinoza Sanchez is from Cuscatlan, Mexico. He studied in economic development, world economy, and Europe and Russia, studied abroad in Paris, learned French and Chinese, minored in French, and was inducted into the French Honor Society. He was president of the Stanford Society for Latin American Politics, interned at Stanford External Communications, was a Fashion X designer, and a Stanford cheerleader. Lalo plans to work in marketing before pursuing his long-term goal of working in diplomacy and serving as the Secretary of External Relations in Mexico. Alexa Figueroa Diaz is from Seattle, Washington. She specialized in comparative international governance and international security, studied abroad in Paris and Madrid, learned Spanish and French, minored in French, and was inducted into the French Honor Society. She was a Stanford Daily contributing writer, speaker, and alumni relations chair for Stanford Women in Law, and Stanford Europe Center intern at Salzburg University in Austria. Most memorable was studying abroad in Paris and Madrid, where she forged unforgettable memories and friendships while learning about different political systems and cultures. Alexa plans to build a career in journalism before pursuing her long-term goal of attending law school and practicing human rights law. Shayla Fitzsimmons-Call is from Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. She specialized in social development and human well-being and comparative international governance, studied abroad in Peru, learned Spanish and French, minored in theater and performance studies, is graduating with interdisciplinary honors in democracy development and the rule of law, and won CDRL's Outstanding Thesis Award. She was a research assistant at the Stanford Center on Philanthropy and Civil Society, organizer of a student-initiated course on U.S. foreign aid, and president of the Stanford Salsa team. One of her favorite memories was meeting her freshman year roommate, now her best friend, who showed her that differences in background and interests matter far less than the connections formed through shared experience. Shayla will continue her co-term in international policy. Melanie Herman is from Mammoth Lakes, California. She specialized in international security and social development in IR human well-being, studied abroad in Santiago and Stanford in Washington, learned Spanish and Russian, minored in history, and graduated with IR honors. She interned for the Fraternal Order of Police, was a leadership team member for Turning Point USA Stanford chapter, and a Stanford Catholic community member. Melanie plans to attend graduate school before pursuing a career in public service with the U.S. government. Danielle Gonzalez Gaubeka is from Palo Alto, California. She specialized in East and South Asia and comparative international governance, studied abroad in Florence, learned Italian and Korean, minored in European studies, and is graduating with interdisciplinary honors in democracy development and the rule of law, and with distinction. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, the Booth Prize for Outstanding First-Year Writing, and was inducted into the Italian Honor Society. She participated in the Schumann Challenge at the EU delegation, the Hoover Student Fellowship Program, the Global Studies Internship Program in Brussels, and was a BOSP Florence Student Ambassador. Dani will begin an MPhil in European Politics and Society at Oxford University in the fall.
Kate Greenman is from Los Angeles, California. She specialized in social development and human well-being and Middle East and Central Asia, studied abroad in Berlin, learned Arabic, minored in history, and received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was a researcher for the History Department and the King Center and a peer advisor for Stanford Global Studies internships. Most memorable was studying abroad, where she fully immersed herself in another culture and learned so much about herself. Kate plans to pursue a master's in migration studies at Oxford University. Eileen Gu specialized in comparative international governance and international history and culture, studied abroad at Oxford, and double majored in philosophy. Eileen took home a total of 3 gold and 3 silver medals from the 2022 and 2026 Olympics, recently becoming the most decorated Olympic free skier in history. She hopes to put her Stanford International Relations education to work, bridging cultures and inspiring global exchange. Mu-Shi Shi is from Smyrna, Tennessee. She specialized in international security and East and South Asia, studied away in Hong Kong and Stanford in New York, learned Mandarin, minored in human rights, received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and is graduating with IR honors. She was Alumni Relations Vice President for the Forum for American Chinese Exchange at Stanford, Collective Liberations intern for the Stanford Women's Community Center, and International Politics Journal board member for the Society for International Affairs at Stanford. Most memorable was hiking 22 miles from Stanford to Half Moon Bay, which she enjoyed so much that she's planning to do it again. Mu-Shi will be a Parami University academic advisor on a Volunteers in Asia Global Community Fellowship, supporting students in Myanmar while living in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and she eventually plans to attend law school. Carolyn Kennedy is from Hingham, Massachusetts. She specialized in international security and comparative international governance, studied abroad in Santiago, and learned and minored in Spanish, received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and is graduating with distinction. She was a 2-time NCAA champion as coxswain on the women's varsity rowing team and a BOSP Santiago student ambassador. Carolyn will be returning to Santiago, Chile in March of 2027 as a Fulbright scholar to conduct research on electoral laws. Hannah Kenneth is from Bend, Oregon. She specialized in social development and human well-being and international security, studied abroad in Mumbai and Accra, learned Spanish, and minored in human rights. She was a Hume Center peer writing tutor, Bay Area Justice Corps service member at the San Mateo Superior Court, and a Magic Bus India Foundation strategy and research intern in Mumbai. She was also a major grant recipient and published in the Stanford Undergraduate Law Review. Most memorable were her first-time traveling experiences, which compelled her to enter the international public advocacy sector and work to improve international law in this highly dynamic time. Hannah plans to pursue a job in international law or human rights and eventually plans to attend law school. Lauren Kuhn is from Houston, Texas. She specialized in comparative international governance and social development and human well-being, studied abroad at Oxford, learned Chinese, and graduated with IR honors and with distinction. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and the IR Program Outstanding Thesis Award. She was executive editor of the Stanford Daily and co-chair of the Board on Conduct Affairs. Lauren plans to complete a co-term in communications media studies and eventually to attend law school. Elkin Mantilla is from Queens, New York. He specialized in international security and Latin American and Iberian studies, studied abroad in Santiago and Argentina, learned Spanish, Portuguese, and French, and minored in Portuguese. He was inducted into the Portuguese Honor Society, received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and is graduating with distinction. He was vice president for the Society for International Affairs at Stanford and interned at the U.S. Commercial Service in Mexico City and at Instituto Civis in Brazil. Most memorable was attending events with Colombian presidents Juan Manuel Santos and Gustavo Petro. Elkin plans to complete a master's in international security at Sciences Po in Paris, France. Avery Miller is from Chicago, Illinois. She specialized in comparative international governance and international security, studied abroad in Paris, learned French and Spanish, minored in modern languages, and received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She participated in the CDDRL Stanford US-Russia Forum, was an executive board member for Stanford in Government and Stanford Women in Law, interned in Switzerland, Brazil, and Indonesia, and was an IR peer advisor. Most memorable was experiencing all of Stanford's unique traditions, such as Stanford to Sea, Flicks, Viennese Ball, and rollouts. Avery will begin a master's in international affairs at Columbia University, specializing in tech policy and innovation. Frankie Mosley is from Los Angeles, California. She specialized in comparative international governance and economic development world economy, studied abroad in Paris, and is co-terming in public policy. Through interning at a Hong Kong law firm and Stanford coursework on the law, she gained a strong interest in technology governance and policy and was a member of Stanford Women in Law. Most memorable were the friendships and mentorships she built at Stanford and the way the people around her expanded her perspective. Frankie looks forward to completing a co-term in public policy. Gia Mukherjee is from Austin, Texas. She specialized in social development and human well-being and comparative international governance, learned Spanish, studied abroad in Madrid, and minored in human rights and comparative literature. She was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, is graduating with IR honors and with distinction, and her IR honors thesis won the Firestone Medal. She interned with the Supreme Court of Indonesia, the Indonesian National Commission of Human Rights, and the Extraordinary Chambers in the Courts of Cambodia. Gia will complete a co-term in public policy while serving as a graduate fellow at the Center for Justice and Accountability in San Francisco. Jinnah Nanagara is from Bangkok, Thailand. He specialized in comparative international governance and international security, studied Spanish, and double majored in communications. Vaughn Nahapatian is from Pasadena, California. He specialized in Middle East and Central Asia and Europe and Russia, studied abroad in Berlin, and learned Armenian and German. He was an FSI research assistant, a Hoover McDonald student fellow, a member of the Stanford Armenian Students Association, and a CSAC national security mentee. Most memorable was learning in real time about major global crises like the Russia-Ukraine war and Prigozhin's coup from Professors Michael McFaul and Condoleezza Rice. Vaughn plans to work for Palantir at the intersection of technology, national security, and strategy, building and scaling systems that have real-world impact. Longer term, he hopes to attend law school or graduate school. Nevaeh Nichols is from Davis, West Virginia. She specialized in international security and comparative international governance, studied away in Florence and Stanford in Washington, and learned Spanish and Italian. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and is graduating with distinction. She was Inter-Sorority Council President, a Haas Center Cardinal Quarter Fellow, and a Foreign Service intern at the US State Department. Most memorable was studying abroad in Florence, because it was her first time outside of the United States and the first time she understood viscerally just how large and layered the world actually is. Nevaeh will travel before beginning her role as a mass torts paralegal at Edelson PC in LA and eventually plans to attend law school. Lara Rudar is from Dubai, UAE. She specialized in environment, energy, and natural resources and international security, studied abroad in Australia, and learned Russian and Turkish. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and Sheikh Hamdan bin Zayed Environmental Medal, and is graduating with interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. She was LA Climate Week co-founder, a Stanford Sustainability Accelerator researcher, and a member of Stanford Women in Business and Cardinal Ventures. Most memorable were visiting the White House with her CSAC cohort, snorkeling with sharks at the Great Barrier Reef during study abroad, and designing for Stanford Fashion X runway show. Lara will join a startup as a Mayfield Fellow and complete a co-term in sustainability science and practice as she continues to work at the intersection of climate, technology, and international security. Aylan Salihifar is from Redwood City, California. She specialized in international security and Middle East and Central Asia, studied abroad in Oxford, learned Turkish, minored in data science, and co-termed in public policy. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and is graduating with interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. She was a Hoover Macdonald Fellow and a member of the Robber Baron's sketch comedy group. Aylan plans to work at a defense tech company. Elmer Santos is from Chicago, Illinois. He specialized in Africa and Latin American and Iberian studies, studied abroad in Cape Town and Santiago, learned Spanish, and minored in mechanical engineer. He was a law clerk at Legal Aid Services of Oregon and Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, an equity policy intern at the City of San Jose Office of Racial and Social Equity, and participated in Stanford's Alternative Spring Break in Portland. Most memorable was meeting different people from different places around the world through the many clubs and programs at Stanford. Elmer will complete a co-term in sustainability science and practice and eventually plans to pursue a PhD in a policy and sustainability field. Evan Singh is from Chelsea, Michigan. He specialized in Europe and Russia and international history and culture, studied away in Tbilisi, Paris, and Stanford in Washington, learned French, Russian, Ukrainian, and Spanish, and minored in Slavic languages and literatures. He was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and is graduating with distinction. He was a French language conversation partner at the Center for Teaching and Learning, managing editor for the Stanford Journal of International Affairs, and a US Senate and European Parliament intern. Most memorable was representing Stanford at the Schumann Challenge at the European Union delegation in Washington, D.C., where his team placed third. Evan will pursue a master's at Georgetown's Walsh School of Foreign Service, studying education, energy policy, and Eastern Europe. Ali Sultan is from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. He specialized in economic development, world economy, and social development and human well-being, studied abroad in Oxford, and learned Mandarin. He was a World Health Organization intern, a member of Stanford Club rugby team, and a Business Association of Stanford Entrepreneurial Students Startup Challenge Enterprise Category winner. Most memorable was building OnCourse and seeing students use it to navigate their Stanford classes and degree paths. Ali will return to Papua New Guinea and continue work on healthcare access and development projects. Charlotte Taylor is from Somerset, United Kingdom. She specialized in economic development, world economy, and environment, energy, and natural resources, and learned French. She was a member of the Stanford Field Hockey Team, Stanford Field Hockey Leadership Council, Stanford Athletes in Finance, and Kappa Kappa Gamma. She was awarded National Scholar of Distinction, Division I National Academic Squad, Pac-12 Fall Academic Honor Roll, and ACC All Academic Team and Honor Roll. Most memorable was Britton Heller's international law class, where she explored the AI lab with EU ministers and sat in on an international committee of the Red Cross discussion. Charlotte will complete a co-term in civil and environmental engineering and plans eventually to pursue consulting or technical roles for architecture, energy, or mining firms. Jose Miguel Tejeda Gonzalez is from Wilsonville, Oregon. He specialized in international security and Europe and Russia, studied abroad in Madrid, and learned and minored in Spanish. He was inducted into the Spanish Honor Society and received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence. He was co-president of Stanford Derricos, an Office of Student Engagement intern, and a tutor for Stanford ABLA. Most memorable was experiencing Spanish culture while studying abroad in Madrid. Miguel plans to work as a Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute Public Policy Fellow for a year, and then return to Stanford for his master's in Latin American Studies. West Temkin is from Alamo, California. He specialized in international security and economic development world economy, studied in Madrid, and learned Spanish. He was captain of the Stanford varsity water polo team and a winner of the Biff Hoffman Award. Most memorable was his senior capstone experience, where he helped the nonprofit CARE to streamline their efforts around the world and improve conditions for women in the workplace. It was the most meaningful and real-world applicable course he has ever taken. West plans to work in investment banking with long-term plans to pursue a career in the global economy. Amena Waze is from Dayton, Ohio. She specialized in international security and social development and human well-being, studied away at Oxford and Stanford in Washington, learned Spanish and Persian, and minored in South Asian studies. She received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and graduated with interdisciplinary honors in international security studies and with distinction. She interned at the Stimson Center and the Hoover Afghanistan Oral History Project and was executive editor at the Stanford Daily. Most memorable was studying abroad at Oxford University and being immersed in an entirely different education system that expanded her perspectives on the diversity of thought within IR. Amena will complete a co-term in journalism and then work as a journalist covering international issues and plans eventually to attend law school. Megan Wu is from Atlanta, Georgia. She specialized in social development and human well-being and in environment, energy, and natural resources, studied abroad in Australia, and learned German. She received the Sterling Award for Scholastic Achievement, the Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa. She interned at DeLeo and Palumbi Labs at Hopkins Marine Station, was a Stanford Women's Club soccer member, Stanford Climbing Team co-captain, Stanford Adventure Program trip leader, and Stanford Wind Symphony and Symphony Orchestra member. Most memorable was studying, living, and exploring Australia's ecosystems with the best cohort ever. Megan plans to complete a co-term in biology.
So the program is winding down right now. I'm tempted to ask, are these kids impressive or what? But parents, family, friends, and faculty, you know that's really not the correct question. A couple of years ago, a professor of political science here at Stanford, Hakeem Jefferson, introduced me to a term in psychology, BIRG. BIRG, B-I-R-G, to bask in reflective glory. So for all of us up here behind me and on the staff who are basking in reflective glory, the obvious question is, don't these graduates make us look good? And I bet you're all asking the same question, right? It's like, yeah, parents. Okay, graduates. Graduates, we've given you swag today to take away with you. A Stanford IR passport holder, an IR mug, and IR luggage tags. These gifts are meant to encourage you to keep venturing out in the world and to stay a keen student of international relations. And they're also meant to encourage you to return home, especially to Stanford, where you will always be welcome in the IR program. We expect to see and hear from you. I can speak for all of your professors and lecturers that it is a joy when alumni connect and let us know how and what they are doing. Now, this is the part of the ceremony where I, the director, am supposed to impart words of advice that are to forever light your way as you go out in the world. I struggled long and hard with this, mostly because I knew I would be coming after Kathryn. So I wanted the words to be clever, short, with international content, and for bonus points, I wanted to reference Canada for Professor Stoner. Yeah. As late as this morning, I was at an impasse. I thought of referencing a line from one of my favorite Grateful Dead songs, Scarlet Begonias, that goes, "Once in a while you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right." It was going to be about the importance of paying attention. But I figured your whole life, people have been telling you to pay attention. So I knew that wouldn't work. Plus, it would only work if you were paying attention. But I was paying attention this morning when I found a story today in the San Francisco Standard newspaper. Okay, you ready? The unwritten rules of karaoke according to SF Pros, okay? This was it. You can't get much more international than karaoke. It even had a Canadian subplot. And so the advice, well, you'll see. I think it transfers to how to approach life in general. And even if you don't see that big connection, chances are you'll find yourselves in a karaoke bar in Seoul, San Francisco, Tokyo, Berlin, New York, Washington, D.C., Vancouver, or wherever you travel. So let me focus on 3 of the rules described in this article, the 3 important rules of karaoke. First, get over yourself. It's not about being good enough to perform, it's about your desire and commitment to the song. Talent is not a precondition for karaoke. It's for everyone who wants to sing. And I absolutely loved one karaoke fan who said, quote, "Being a critic of a karaoke singer is about the stupidest thing you can do." All right, get over yourself. 2, sing what you love. Now, this advice comes from a karaoke singer named Morgan, who says you should never sing what you think the crowd wants to hear, or what you figure will get the best reaction, or the one your friends are yelling at you to do. The idea is to commit to a song you love. Now, this advice comes with a caveat, and you'll understand. If the song you love is complicated, has lots of words, and moves fast, then you actually have to practice, right? So, like, if you do Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire," which is, by the way, is a great IR song, great IR content, just ask your parents. If you don't know it, just check it out on Spotify. Then you gotta practice, right? The 3rd rule of karaoke, folks, read the room. This is where we get to Canada. The story in the newspaper tells about a pair of bikers who were on a long trip in British Columbia and happened on to karaoke night in a saloon somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Canada. The bar was filled with older couples, and the first of the bikers was a fan of heavy metal and sang a headbanger by Soundgarden and shockingly received no applause and dead silence. Fortunately, his biking partner read the room. He chose a song from the 1970s by a Canadian singer named Anne Murray, who I would say, don't ask your parents, ask your grandparents who Anne Murray was. She was accurately described in the story as schmaltzy, but by the time the second biker was finished, the dance floor was filled with middle-aged couples slow dancing to the tune. So that's what I got for you, grads. Get over yourselves, sing what you love, and read the room. All right. Before we end, we have a few rounds of thanks to finish up with. First, graduates, I'd like you to please stand. And I want you to join me in thanking the hardworking staff of the IR program who saw you through the major and who were responsible for today's festivities. Paul Festa, Stephen Busse, Olivia Williams, and Sarah Aragon Garcia. Stay standing. Second, graduates, please join me in thanking your parents, family members, and friends who are here for you today and whose support before and while you were at Stanford made all the difference. And finally, stay standing. You can applaud for yourselves and each other. Guests, give these guys one big final round of applause, the Stanford International Relations class of 2026. If you want, yay. And with that, we end today's ceremony. Thank you and congratulations to everyone.